Hello, my dear students. Assalamu alaikum. Dr. Rizan here. Hope you are doing good. As you know, we have already finished the topics of general anatomy that is present in your first term, that is bones, joints, cartilage, and muscle tissue. So, you might have lot of questions from these topics, and today I will discuss about the written questions that might come from these topics in your different exams like card exam, term exam, or even professional exam. I will give you the question bank. I will show you what might be the written questions that can come from these topics, and I will do a very brief discussion regarding these questions. So let's start. Hello, my dear student. Assalamu alaikum. Hope you are doing good. Dr. Rizan here. Today I will discuss about the general anatomy written questions. The first topic is bones. Number 1, define bone. Give the composition of the bone. Number 2, write in short about the organic and the inorganic parts of the bone with their importance. Number 3, give the morphological classification of bone with examples. Now for the first question, you know the definition, because in the definition it was living, highly vascular, mineralized, constantly changing hard form of connective tissue. In the composition, we had bone cells and the bone matrix. The bone cell was including mesenchymal cell, osteoprogenitor cell, osteoblast, osteocyte, and the osteoclast. On the other hand, the bone matrix was having water, organic part, inorganic part, and the organic and inorganic part was having their different composition. On the other hand, the organic and the inorganic part was providing some of the important functions for the bone, like the inorganic part was providing hardness and the rigidity. On the organic part, it was providing resilience, tensile strength, and the shearing strength. In case of morphological classification of bone, there was long bone, short bone, flat bone, then it was sesamoid bone, irregular bone, and so on. In the long bone, there was typical long bone, miniature long bone, and modified long bone, and you know the examples of them. Number 4 question is define periosteum, give its layer with their functional importance. What is endosteum? You know the definition of the periosteum. It was the fibrovascular cellular layer that was covering the external surface of the bone except the articular surfaces. So individual layer of those structure was having the different properties. Number 5, discuss about the factors affecting bone growth. I have discussed those factors in details. You can find it from the lecture note. Number 6, draw and label the parts of a growing long bone. Obviously, a growing long bone or developing long bone was having epiphysis, epiphyseal cartilage, metaphysis, and the diaphysis. So the next question is define epiphysis, diaphysis, metaphysis. What is epiphyseal cartilage and what is its importance? You know the epiphysis that was coming from the secondary ossification center, diaphysis was coming from the primary ossification center, and the metaphysis was the epiphyseal end of the diaphysis. The epiphyseal cartilage was a plate of hyaline cartilage that was present only when the bone is growing. When the bone is finished with its growth, you will never see the epiphyseal cartilage. So presence of the epiphyseal cartilage represents that the bone is still under growth. Now the last question from this slide is define primary and the secondary ossification center, give their example and exceptions. Next question, classify epiphysis with example, give the structure of epiphyseal cartilage. You know that there are different type of epiphysis like atavistic epiphysis, aberrant epiphysis, pressure epiphysis, and the traction epiphysis. Number 10, what is the law of union of epiphysis? What is the growing end of a long bone? Briefly discuss about the importance of metaphysis. Law of union of the epiphysis was the epiphysis that will appear first, unite last with the diaphysis, and that epiphysis is actually representing the growing end of a long bone because it is growing for the longer period of time. Importance of metaphysis, because metaphysis was happening, hairpin like capillaries, so any bacteria can stuck over there, it can multiply, and there will be the infection of the bone, that is called the osteomyelitis. And as you know, the metaphysis is usually present within the joint cavity, so from the osteomyelitis there could be arthritis when the infection is or the inflammation is transmitting to the joint, and the vice versa can happen. From the joint the infection might go into the metaphysis, and from the arthritis osteomyelitis can happen. That is the topic. Now the next question is discuss about the blood supply of growing long bone. As you know, the growing long bone or developing bone, the blood supply was the nutrient artery, periosteal artery, and the juxtaepiphyseal artery that was very much close to the joints or the end of the bones, from where there will be epiphyseal artery and the metaphyseal artery. And the blood supply is almost same in case of developed long bone, number 12 question, where there will be no epiphyseal and the metaphyseal artery. You can directly write the arterial anastomosis around the joint over there. The nutrient artery and the periosteal artery will be the same. 13 question, what is ossification? Define intramembranous and the intracartilaginous ossification. So ossification is the formation of bone, and definition of intramembranous and the intercartilaginous definition was very much specific. In case of intramembranous ossification, a fibrous sheath will be converted into bone, but in case of intracartilaginous ossification, there was a cartilage model which is totally replaced by the bone. I have told you several times. So the next question is briefly describe the process of intracartilaginous or the endochondral ossification. It's a very long question. We have a sequential diagram to understand that question, so you can find it from the note. Then briefly describe the process of intramembranous ossification. That is another long question with some sequential diagrams and explanations. Next question, name the bone cells. Briefly discuss about the osteoblast and the osteoclast. The bone cell was osteoprogenitor cell, osteoblast, osteocyte, and osteoclast. And about the osteoblast and the osteoclast, they're totally different. You can find their nature from your histology. Like the osteoblast, which is actually bone forming cell, the active cell who are actually present into a small cavity called the Hauschilp's lacuna, and over there it is projecting its cytoplasmic process to get its nutrition, and they are providing the organic part of the bone matrix. On the other hand, the osteoclast is nothing but the macrophage of the bone, and it can mineralize the bone because it can destroy the bone, you know that. So the next question is, what is osteon or the Haversian system? Briefly discuss about the histological structure of a compact bone. You can find it out from your histology department. It is not difficult things. First, the plate of compact bone is present one after another that surround a canal called the Haversian canal that contains blood vessels and nerve. At the same time, this plate is called the lamella, and this within this lamella there are some small spaces that is called the lacuna, and within the lacuna the osteocytes are usually present, but the cytoplasmic process of the osteocyte are piercing through this plate or the lamella, and that small hair-like canals that is coming from the lacuna is called the canaliculi, and through this canaliculi the cytoplasmic process of one osteocyte is connecting with the cytoplasmic process of another osteocytes, and that's how the osteocytes which are very much nearer to the Haversian canal having the nutrition, they can transmit the nutrition through their cytoplasmic process to the distal osteocyte, and this way the nutrition can be transmitted from the very nearer portion to the outer portion of the bones, and that is the main function. Now the next question is the explain anatomically. Bone is a rigid organ, you have to say the inorganic part over here. Then periosteum is essential for the union of fractured bone, because you know the periosteum is having osteoprogenitor cell. That osteoprogenitor cell convert into osteoblast to from the organic bone matrix, and also the periosteal blood vessels will bring the calcium, that is the inorganic bone matrix, and ultimately the healing will be done or the union of the fracture can be done by the presence of the organic and the inorganic part, and the new bone that is from within this fracture is called the callus. Now, next question is, the osteoclast is essential for bone remodeling. Obviously, when there is irregularity at the surface of the bones and when there is abnormal bone growth, that thing has to be removed, and that removal is done by the osteoclast by their phagocytic activities. Then the metaphysis is clinically important. I have already discussed it. Then the sesamoid bone have some peculiarities. You know that the sesamoid bone are mainly formed by the friction of the tendons, so they doesn't have any periosteum, and they do not have any blood supply, nerve supply, nothing. At the same time, they do not have any specific Haversian system, so they are actually getting their nutrition inside a joint by the process of diffusion. That is the main function of the sesamoid bone. Now the next slide is on cartilage. As we can see, very few questions from the cartilage. Define cartilage, give its function, give the composition of the cartilage, what is perichondrium. You know, the covering of the cartilage is called the perichondrium. Discuss about the morphological and the histological differences among the hyaline, fibro and the elastic cartilage with the distribution in a tabulated form. I have give you that table, so you will find those things from that table, because it was a single presentation, you can easily find that thing. Now draw and label the histological section of a hyaline and the elastic cartilage, and you know that in the histological section, in case of hyaline cartilage, the background will be bluish in color, and the elastic cartilage, the color will be yellowish because of the elastic fibers who are containing elastin, a kind of pigment materials who are yellowish in color. In case of hyaline cartilage, the cells are in isogenous group, that means two cells are present in pairs, and those cells are homologous to each other, like they are like the mirror image to each other, and they are present in the lacuna. On the other hand, in the elastic cartilage, the elastic fibers are more rather than the cartilage cells, and those cells are not present in a particular form, they are dispersely present in between those elastic fibers. So the elastic fibers are having more elastic cartilage is having more elastic fibers, that's why the elasticity is more. And in case of hyaline cartilage, the appearance is the ground glass appearance, is the glassy appearance is present in case of hyaline cartilage. Now the joints. Define joint, classify joints with example. Very big question. The joint definition, you know the joint definition with I have divide the joint definition into different segments so you can understand it. Classify joint is a very like vigorous questions, where under which you have to mention all the classifications of the joints, like the fibrous joint, cartilaginous joints and the synovial joints with the example obviously. And if the question is little bit smaller, then it will be classified fibrous joint with example. Under fibrous joint, you know the suture joint is there, then there is gymphosis, and obviously under suture joint there are different type of suture like serrate suture, denticular, and then wedge and groove, then plain suture and so on. Then under the gymphosis, you know that the peg and socket, that means your tooth and the socket or the gum of your tooth will be under this. And the cartilaginous joint is another type, where you have to mention there is primary cartilaginous joint and the secondary cartilaginous joint. That is also secondary cartilaginous joint is also known as syndesmosis, you know that. So then the question will be classify synovial joint with example. Over here you can mention the morphological classification of the synovial joint, that includes plain type of synovial joint, ball and socket type of synovial joint, saddle type of joint, condylar type of joint, ellipsoid, and everything you can understand with their example obviously. Then define primary and secondary cartilaginous joint with their example. Classify synovial joint on the basis of their axis of the movement. You know there are basically single axis. The single axis that is uniaxial joint can be there. That could be biaxial joint, and there could be multi-axial joint. You know the single axial joint are the usually hinge joint, and the condylar joint. The biaxial joints are usually saddle joint, and also the ellipsoid type of joints. In the multi-axial joint, usually the ball and socket type of synovial joints are there. With their examples, you can understand. Then the discuss about the characteristics of a typical synovial joint with their diagram. We have drawn this diagram several times, so you should understand that in case of typical synovial joint, there will be a outer fibrous capsule. Inside the capsule, there will be the lining of the synovial membrane that will produce the synovial fluid, and inside the joint there will be synovial fluid. And this synovial membrane is covering the inner aspect of the joint cavity, except it will not go over the articular surface, because the articular surface is covered by the articular cartilage or the hyaline cartilage. Due to the friction of those cartilage, the synovial membrane can be ruptured, so there is no synovial membrane over the articular surface. Then define mechanical axis, what is spin and the swing movements. You can find it from the lecture note. Now let's start the muscle tissue, the last topic we have discussed. Number 1, classify muscle tissue with their characteristics and the distribution. Obviously, there will be the skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, and the cardiac muscle with their characteristics. Number 2, briefly discuss about the histological structure of cardiac muscle. What is intercalated disc? Histological structure, you know that they are the striated muscle. They are having branches. That means side branches is there. They are also, this striation is the cross striation. The single nucleus is present into the cell, and also intercalated disc. Intercalated disc is nothing but the junctional complex having both it is having the maybe it is having desmosome and also the gap junctions as well. And in case of classification of the skeletal muscle on the type of the muscle fasciculi, color with examples. You know that muscle fasciculi can be fine muscle and the coarse muscle, and the color will be the red muscle and the white muscle that we have already discussed. Then the next question is classify skeletal muscle on the basis of arrangement of the muscle fasciculi with example. And this, under this, you have to say that these are, it could be parallel muscle, that could be pinnate muscles, and these are there are some subdivisions of these muscles. Like in case of parallel muscle, there will be strap muscle, that will be quadrate muscle, so on, and also there will be some muscles like the biceps brachii, which are spindle in shape. And in case of pinnate muscle, there will be unipinnate, bipinnate, and the multipinnate muscles, and there will be some cruciate muscle, and there will be some like twisting kind of muscle, that is called the spiral muscle. So a lot of examples are under the arrangement of the muscle fasciculi regarding the skeletal muscle. Then give the functional classification of the skeletal muscle with example. The functional classification of the skeletal muscle is mainly the prime mover, the antagonist, synergist, and the fixator. So you will find those things from your lecture note. Name the covering of the skeletal muscle with their importance. You know that there was endomysium, perimysium, and epimysium, so you have to write those things. Next question is give the microstructure of the skeletal muscle. What is sarcomere and what is its importance? So microstructure of the skeletal muscle is actually the sarcomere itself. Sarcomere, you know that it is extending from the Z disc to the Z disc. I have discussed it. There will be interconnecting actin and the myosin filaments in between them, and over there you can find the A band and the I band, and also the H band and the M line, and you can describe those things from the diagram. Briefly discuss about the mechanism of the skeletal muscle contraction. I have already discussed those things, the neuromuscular junction, and also how the contraction wave is coming from the neuronal end to the muscle end, and how it is propagating through the T tubules and spreading all over the muscle to do the muscle contraction. Now explain anatomically. Soleus is a red muscle because soleus is a deep muscle. It is a cup muscle. It is a red muscle because it is having venous sinuses within it. When it contracts, the venous sinus can pour the blood from the deep vein to the superficial vein, or actually they are sucking out the blood from the superficial vein to the deep vein, so to do the venous drainage. and that's why it is called the red muscle, and also the soleus is called the peripheral heart. The pinate muscles are more stronger than the strap muscle because the pinate muscles are having more muscle fiber rather than the strap muscles, but the length of the pinate muscles are smaller than the strap muscle. Because of the short length and the more muscle fiber, they are more stronger than the strap muscle. They can work very forcefully. But it's true that their extension of work is not that much because they are short. Then duration of action is more in red muscle and force of contraction is less. Because red muscles are having preserved sarcoplasmic reticulum with a dense capillary network, and obviously the myoglobins are, everything is more in the red muscle, so they can preserve more energy, so they can work for a longer period of time. But at the other hand, they are having aerobic like their aerobic muscles, they use oxygen, so if they can use oxygen for a longer period of time, they can work for a longer period of time. On the other hand, the white muscles are anaerobic muscle who can exert a strong force, but they are easily fatigued because they do not have preserved oxygen or the ATPs inside them. So that's all about the muscle tissue. So hopefully you get all the written questions for your first term examination from the bones, joints, cartilage and the muscle tissue. Hopefully you will make a note on that from your lecture notes. So take care and stay safe. Thank you.